no mistakes, no complications this time. We'll get it right the first time. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hello everybody and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 158. For those of you guys who follow us every week, you may have realized that we skipped 1 week. So that means tonight's show will be a little bit longer and covering a bit more than usual. I'm Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia. I am a full-time streamer and your host for the night and every night. My co-host is, as usual, the lovely Perculia.
Hey everyone, I am the site manager for Wowhead. I oversee all the news and the data mining and the guides and the features you see on the site. And we do this show so we can recap all the recent news and happenings going on at Wowhead and connect with the Wowhead community better to answer any questions you may have or provide more insights into some of the, new guides or interesting data mining that we post during the week. We have a lot to cover because we missed a week and the beta started and there's tons of new quests to do on the alpha, which is now beta. Before we go into that, we have a giveaway going on for people watching in Twitch chat. It is 1 month of game time and the keyword to enter is one word, WoW time. So,
WoW time.
Yep. And if you have any questions during the show, you can send them to Sass and we will answer them at the end of the show.
Sounds good. Yep. WoW time. I can see you guys writing it. Awesome.
Yay.
I was like, yeah, if you guys need help knowing how to spell it out, I can help you, but I think you guys got it. You're good.
Yep.
You don't need my help.
Yep.
But yeah, as Perk mentioned, it was funny because 2 weeks ago, Perk and I were like, hopefully there won't be too much going on in these 2 weeks, because since we're going to be gone and since there was a lot of announcements right before then, we're like, we might be lucky and we won't have too much to cover. There is a lot to cover, which isn't bad news anyways, right? Like, we want new stuff.
The show's more exciting.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But we've got lots of things to show you guys and also lots of story stuff to talk about and tell you guys about.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's jump straight into it.
Right. So Battle for Azeroth is now in beta as opposed to alpha, and that happened yesterday, Tuesday morning.
Yep. So what does this mean for like the regular player? What does it mean that it went from alpha to beta?
Okay, so what that means is that characters that had alpha access had their character progress wiped, so testing begins again, so you start as a level 110. It means the level cap is open to 120. It means that the game is in a more polished state, so we can expect more Blizzard communication. Like, things are finalized, and now they're seeking feedback and explaining their choices, as opposed to being like, well, you can test this, but it's half broken. And it means that many more people are being invited. Wowhead will likely have beta keys. Same with past expansions. We don't have any keys on us right now, but we have sent in proposals for keys, so hopefully soon. There are new beta forums. There is a Battle for Azeroth Q&A for Thursday, April 26th. And there are no further character wipes planned, and character copies will be enabled, which is the big thing because you can see how, like, your specific character, levels up and like, how it feels to not have the artifact or how it feels to have your legendary turned off at level 116, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hinting towards the availability, which you mentioned here as well. Like, it will mean that more waves will come out, more available to people, and of course the beta keys, which we should have, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, and yesterday Blizzard sent out a huge wave of beta keys, and you can see if you got access by checking your Battle.net launcher. If someone claims that they have a key to give you, that is a scam right now, and if you'd like to get access, make sure you've opted into beta on Battle.net so you're eligible to have your character flagged.
Yeah, sounds good. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good thing to mention. So right now, if anyone tries to claim that they have a key, they don't, because there are no keys available.
Exactly.
Good to know. Good to know. So right now, only the specific invitations that go straight to your like email or that you can see in the launcher is what's available.
Exactly.
Good to know. Yeah, that's really exciting, you know? Switching from alpha to beta makes everything, you know, feel so much more closer. Like, you know, it's happening. It's getting here. It's soon here.
Yeah, they're in the polish stage with this, which means that they're communicating more. So, for example, we had a post yesterday saying, oh, you know, look for changes for Frost and Unholy Death Knights and Protection Warriors. And, you know, here's the thread for items. Here's the thread for islands. Here's the thread for warfronts. And just seems a lot more blue posts are being made as opposed to alpha, where it's like, well, you know, we're not going to comment on this yet because it's going to change or it's half broken. But yeah, they also claimed, I didn't put this in the notes, but they've claimed that for most classes, the major talent overhauls are done, except for the 3 classes I mentioned, the Frost, Unholy, DK, and Protection Warriors. But they will do a further round of tuning to see how the Azurite traits interact with, you know, the talents, because we haven't really seen a ton of Azurite traits, and certainly not the intricate, you know, legendary or set bonus level ones that, you know, we've been promised. So I'm sure that could tweak things a bit further.
Oh yeah, and the Azurite, is there anything else in the game right now with that, or is it where the alpha was in terms of stage of development?
Yeah,
or showing
I mean,
us?
we still have that weird UI that just kind of looks like the Crucible flipped over. We don't have the nice, pretty circles promised at BlizzCon.
Okay.
We've
so
data
that's
mined
still...
a few. Yeah. We've data mined a few more traits, but they're kind of along the lines of like, oh, like this gives you versatility for 5 seconds, not like, this is a transformative bonus. So curious to see where that's going.
Yeah. I think that's probably something that we're going to see in the new, in like a build in the near future, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the main things that's lacking a lot of sort of updates for us to see.
Yeah.
So beta out.
Yeah.
Great news. That's it's funny, like that bomb dropped like 2 days after we decided to skip a show, and it's like, oh no, we're gonna miss that. But you know, travels happen. Sometimes we can't have a show, but it's okay. We're covering it now, so it's all right.
Yep. So yeah, we have a ton of models. Another benefit of having 2 builds in between the show. And the most important one is the Kul Tiran Druid Cat Forms.
Yeah. As you guys may remember, we saw the Kul Tiran bear form in the past, but we had not seen the cat form yet, and now we have these pictures. I actually really like them. I think they look really cool, and I love how they continue with the theme of like the branching, the sort of nature feel to them, and both the hair and like the tail and everything feels like it's just leaves. You know, feels like you're an actual tree cat of some sort. I think they look amazing.
Yeah, I think they look cool. Plus the animations are up for the cats as well as the bears now, so you can see how they move. Because I know a concern with the Zandalari at first was that they look very like stiff and like stuffed dinosaurs, and now we have the actual cats, and we have Brightpaw back because we're talking about cats.
Oh, yeah. He heard the calling. He's like, what? Yeah. You're looking at other cats?
Yeah.
Look at me now.
You are still a very special cat, Brightpaw.
Yeah, we don't have any updates on a Boomkin form as of yet.
Or no travel form either.
That's true. No travel form either.
Yeah.
Just bear and cat so far. They're giving us the candy slowly, you know. One candy at a time, not everything at once.
Exactly. It's like, you know, I think they plan it this way. So it's like, oh, like, the, you know, the data miners have to, like, dig up, like, one thing at a time and add a thing to paste it all out to build hype.
Yep. It's like, okay, cat form is now old news. We need new news. Let's go with Boomkin.
Exactly.
But yeah, speaking of more models, we have some other updated models as well. First one coming up here is a model update of Rexxar.
He looks very cool. He looks much closer to his Heroes of the Storm model now.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
He'll be one of the Horde War Campaign followers, champions, Garrison Updates 3.0. And he plays a role, I believe, in Stormsong Valley, so it makes sense. He needs to get an updated model because all the other leaders are updated, and he was looking kind of low, very, very low resolution.
Yeah. So it was well needed. Another model update that we have here is the Hippogriff Mount. Sorry, no.
Hippo.
Mistake. Yeah. The Hippo Mount. Hippogriff is very different. The Hippo Mount, which looks very funny. I don't think there's any other mount with this model, is there?
It's based on the Warlord's River Beast skeletons, but the final result looks a bit different. Like the River Beasts have that weird thing and different shaped tails. If you view it in the Wowhead model viewer and go to mount special, it looks really funny, like it's twerking.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I should have recorded a little clip of that to show it.
Yeah. If you go to the Wowhead page where we have the show notes, we have a link to the post where you can see it in the model viewer, and it looks pretty great.
That's funny. Yeah, it looks really funny. It looks goofy. Goofy is the right word. It looks really goofy. I love it. And if you look at it, you can see a bunch of armor, and this is because this is going to be one of the vicious mounts. So one of those mounts that you can get for the vicious saddles, I think it's called, right? The reward for getting 100 wins in arena or 40 wins in rated battlegrounds.
Yep, and so far this is an alliance only one. We have not found a horde one yet, but hippos don't really seem to be faction specific, so maybe we'll get a horde one in the future.
Have we seen a horde one that is not available for alliance yet, like so that they have an equivalent?
So we've seen the War Cleft Hoof, which appears to be the Madcar Orc inspired one. And we think that the Darkhound one is from the Vicious Saddle for the alliance, which is like, you know, Dark Iron
that would be equivalent.
Like I don't think this hippo really screams Dark Iron Dwarf.
No. So that means then it could be possible still for her to get it.
Yeah, we data mined a Vicious Basilisk, which has alliance and horde variations. So
okay,
maybe this will be the same.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
more vicious mounts. I'm looking forward to that. I actually have all the vicious mounts. I think the fox one was the latest one, right?
Yeah, that was added in 7.3.5.
Yeah, so I've got them all, so I'm looking forward to having more mounts to collect.
Yep. So we also have some famous NPCs that got some updates. We knew Queen Ashar's base model from a few weeks ago, but now she has her hair back, and she has a few like talking animations or more for tentacles move around. So she looks cooler than before. Obviously having, you know, her kind of weird white hair going all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely going to be pretty central in this new expansion coming, or at least at the beginning, so it's only normal for her to get a visual update as well.
Yeah, the only other time you've seen her in game is in her Night Elf form in things like, you know, Well of Eternity or the Azuna questline. And then we saw her, you know, Naga form at BlizzCon 2017 in concept art. And now she is updated, and she's going to be like the Gul'dan boss of Battle for Azeroth. And she makes a few appearances throughout the early storyline in quests, because some of the problems in the zones are done under her orders.
Yeah, both for Horde and Alliance.
If she's meant to be a boss, it's like, oh, well, obviously she needs to be causing some problems early on to have the story make sense.
Indeed. We've also seen a model for Zul with a bit more of a red tint to him. Are we calling it Blood Zul, or is it called Blood Zul?
I believe it's called Blood Zul in the data files. That's what Stevon gave to me. It wasn't apparent in the data at first, and then he like brute forced the model yesterday. I was like, oh, I found this cool thing.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I love it. I actually really like the red tints to it. It's like little red details, like little red diamonds, and also the eyes are also reddish. And I think it looks really cool. So what we think is that this is probably from the older encounters, like kind of a phase 2 of it.
Yeah, in the dungeon journal, it says Stage 2 Zul awakened, and at 40% health, Zul allows the full power of Gahun to overcome him, granting him newfound power, and Zul is the blood god. And there's lots of little subtle details, too, in addition to the red, like his skin has all these veins, and it's blood-soaked, and his armor is blood-soaked as well, and like his tusks are discolored. So my guess is that his normal appearance is with questing and maybe an early part of the raid, and then he gets empowered and turns all bloody by the blood god. And it reminds me of Argus, how like normal difficulty is blue and then mythic is red, and it's like, oh, this is the Argus treatment. Like he becomes
that's a good point. Yeah.
More evil.
Yeah. No, I like it because it's red, but it's not actually bloody. It looks like fancy red. I think it looks good. It looks badass. I like it.
Yeah.
And yeah, good point. It's more like red gems. It's not diamonds, but I call them diamonds because I like to. I like it.
Zul is a fan of Annie.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he must be subscribed to my channel, I think.
Exactly.
We got some more models to show you guys. A mount that we may have mentioned in the past actually now has a model update for us to share with you. It's called the Mecha Mogul MK2 mount.
Yeah, so as a mount collector, you must be excited about this. It's like a version of Mimiron's head, except it has little turrets and lasers that pop out from it. And this is the schematic. It's made by engineers, and it doesn't have an engineering requirement to use, but it's BOP, so that probably means that the engineer has to craft it, then everyone else on the account can use it. And the schematic drops from the final boss of the Mullerloo dungeon, which makes sense because the final boss dismounts from the Mecha Mogul MK1, which obviously is defeated, so that's why now you have to make the better MK2.
Yeah.
And it takes a ton of mats. Like, we don't know where they all come from now, but it's a hefty amount of mats. And I believe this is the 4th mount that originates from dungeons in Battle for Azeroth, and it looks super cool, especially the mount special where it just like the eyes bug out and then this turret laser thing appears and it starts shooting at players. It looks really cool.
Yeah, and I think, wait, so you said it's a hefty amount of mats. That means at the beginning it might actually be an expensive mount.
Yeah, it's something like, we don't know where they're from, but when I hear numbers like 50 platinum ore, 100 storm ore, 20 expulsion, 20 Azurite forge protection plating, 20 blast fired electric servometer, 20 quest resilient stabilizer, 1 barely stable Azurite reactor, and 1 Mecha Mogul MK1 remote activation device. That sounds like a lot. Like maybe since the dungeon is all like goblin themed, maybe you will have to collect them throughout the dungeon over several runs. A lot of the materials are BOP.
Okay. Interesting.
So, but like the expulsion and the ore is not BOP. But a ton of the rare quality items that sound funny are BOP.
That means I probably have to level my engineer as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh god, okay. Well, if you are an engineer and if you want to show off, then this is definitely a mount that you should try to aim to craft as soon as possible.
If you don't have Mimiron's head, but you really like the engineering, this one.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. If you're really sad, Mimiron's head is still not dropping for you, then you could go for this one instead.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Always nice to see more mounts added to the game.
Yeah. So Rexxar was not the only famous Horde character that got an update. We also have Grommash Hellscream, who you may remember was a major character in Warlords of Draenor, and he's now making a reappearance because, the Mag'har Orcs are joining the Horde, and it makes sense he would be part of, like the intro scenario if he's the one that has united all the tribes and, must show up in some way. And his new armor kind of resembles the heritage armor that the Orcs are wearing. So, yeah.
Indeed. We have one more NPC to show you guys, also with an updated model.
Yeah.
Lady Liadrin.
Yeah. So she looks much closer to her Hearthstone card art now. She has golden eyes instead of green eyes, which is also an option for players in Battle for Azeroth. And her armor is tinted red instead of the tier 3 redemption armor. She's wearing some of the PvP Tomb of Sargeras themed set now. And I know lots of people had a discussion. They're like, oh, like, does she deserve the golden eyes? Why don't other classes have updated armor? Did she corrupt things? Is she too addicted to stuff? So it's interesting. It generated a ton more discussion than I thought. But I don't know. I like her new appearance. This new appearance
I like it too.
In the war fronts, so the PvP armor seems fitting. And they didn't actually have to create new art for her model. They, just changed the eye tint and changed the armor she was wearing. So to me, that seems like a very cheap, but not in a
subtle
bad way.
change.
Yeah, it's like you can update a lot of models this way without having to have brand new art for them. You can just use existing assets and have something, kind of equally effective.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I like these updates.
And as usual, all these models, if you go to the Wowhead links in the show notes, there are little buttons underneath them saying to view in the Wowhead model viewer, and you can see them doing all sorts of things from dancing to jokes to combat poses, and it's a lot of fun to go through all of them and see the funny things they do.
Yeah, and that covers all the new model updates that we have for now, but we have more things to show here. Actually, that's not entirely true. This is still model update in a way, but we're going more into characters instead. So what we have here is changes in skin tones in terms of being able to change your skin color while in the game at the barbershop.
Yeah, this was an option people have been asking for forever, and people were quite jealous that allied races had the option, but nobody else did. And, you'd have to pay for, like, a character customization change and, spend real money on this. But now, for 300 gold, you can change the skin tone. So that's pretty exciting and a much-requested feature.
This is really cool. I mean, I remember discussing before not even being aware that you could change faces. And it feels like you can change everything now.
Yeah, so, I think with this it is everything. So
right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So there's no point, well, still a point, but there's no need to worry when you're creating a new character. Like I remember sitting there like, am I sure about this face?
It's like, yeah.
And I think I even have some characters that I'm not happy with their faces because some of them look angry. I could just go and change it now. I had no idea. Like people told me a couple of weeks ago and I was like, what? You can change faces? I'm pretty sure you could not do that years ago.
Yeah, I think that was added at some point. I've definitely changed faces.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. More options. Happy everyone. More customization even after your character's been created.
Yep.
And speaking of
arm again, so it's like that's why my arm's a little funny looking. He's holding on to it.
Aww. It's like Perk's mine, not yours. What was I saying? Yes, customization. Speaking of customization, we also are having some updates to the Blood Elf male face. It seems like with all the different faces, they are having a less of a duck face. Yeah. So we have a example picture here. So the left one is the live version, and the right one is the alpha version. Or maybe we should call it beta version now.
Yeah, we did this back when it was still alpha.
Yep.
And, times change.
Times change. And this kind of change is something that you can see with all the different faces. So it's not just like one particular face. Right. It's a general change that seems to be covering all the male, or all the Blood Elf male faces.
Yeah, and this is cool how it's a highly requested change, and with all the attention being put into allied races, it's nice that they're doing some stuff for the older races that could use some attention. Also, if you're curious what your Blood Elf will look like in Battle for Azeroth with these changes, the Wowhead dressing room is already updated to show you all the new faces. And then we've also got some allied race updates as well. Mag'har Orcs and Dark Iron Dwarves have been enabled on the Battle for Azeroth Alpha or Beta. And we learned some new stuff about them when they were up for testing and also through data mining. So we now know the racials for the Mag'har Orcs. They are Ancestral Call, which you increase a random secondary stat for 12 seconds. And the secondary stat is named after like each tribe based on what it is. Open Skies increases mount speed by 10%. Savage Blood reduces duration of poison, disease, and curses by 10%. And Sympathetic Vigor increases pet health by 10%. Keep in mind they cannot be warlocks, but they can be hunters.
Ooh, how come not warlocks?
Well, I think the idea is that the Mag'har are the uncorrupted, and
you meant okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. I thought you meant the hunters are getting the racial, but warlocks are not. But of course,
right.
They're not warlocks in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, what? What about my pets? Yeah, of course. I misunderstood. Yeah, and I know that there's been quite some discussion around the increases mount speed because we have classes that could become they could have a sort of stacked mount speed, right? So is it Death Knight?
They can't be Death Knights or Paladins.
Oh, they can't be either of them? Okay.
Right.
For some reason, I thought there was one class that they could be, which would take advantage of the fact that they have the mount speed increase. I guess not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They can be warrior, hunter, rogue, priest, shaman, mage, and monk.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think any of those have mount speeds. In that case, no stacking.
Yep. Sorry.
No stacking. Sorry, guys. Nope. But if you're not one of those classes, you can finally catch up with your DK friends, with this 10% mount speed. So there's that. Still something positive.
Yeah.
Racials for just one class. Yeah, no. Don't mind me. Like, I was getting ready to fight. Like, what? What do you mean my pets don't get that buff?
Yeah. Just to interrupt quickly, Sass says that the giveaway bot extension was broken. It was not our fault, but we're sorry that we gave you the command when you couldn't enter and have your entries tracked. If you want the month of game time, type the bot command !raffle to enter instead. Thanks.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
!raffle instead.
Yep.
Thanks, Sass, for the update.
But yeah,
back to allied races.
Yeah, back to the pet racial. We've now learned what the starting hunter pets are, and I think the Dark Irons have it a lot better than the Mag'har. They have the Dark Irons have this like flaming cat or dog or demon creature that looks really cool and unique, while the Mag'har orcs have like it's cute, but it's just like a regular frostwolf, and I don't know, it doesn't seem very distinctive.
Yep, and I'm showing the pictures right here. Yeah, the Mag'har orc pet looks like a regular hunter pet, something that probably exists already. And the Dark Iron Dwarves get the very, very cool pet. Is it called Demon Dog, or is it just what we're referring it as?
I don't know the starting name of it, because when you actually log in, the pet changes and goes away.
Oh yeah, good point.
But I'm just calling it Demon Dog for now.
Yeah.
Or like Dark Hound, something like that.
I think it looks really cool. That hair is awesome.
Yeah. We also confirmed that when you make the Dark Iron Paladin, the mount that we data mined a while back, that's the cool ram, that's silver and fiery, that is a special Paladin mount. Only the Dark Irons get.
Which can be seen here.
Yeah. Also, a lot of people are asking, oh, what does the Mole Machine racial do? In-game, it's marked as not yet implemented, so we don't know what it does yet. But my guess is that since the Mag'har orcs have 4 racials and the Dark Iron have 5, that it's probably kind of a silly racial, or maybe just like a teleport to the Grim Guzzler, or something that is not actually a combat racial, because that would be imbalanced if they had like 5 more combat perks while the orcs had 4. Oh, I forgot, we didn't put this, speaking of racials, Arcane Torrent is now nerfed and changed.
Yes.
We usually don't cover class changes in these because there's so many, but
this is an important one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is pretty important.
There's been so much discussion on this.
Yep. So, little racial session detour. 2 racials received updates. Arcane Torrent no longer interrupts. It instead attempts to remove a beneficial effect from all nearby enemies, cooldown reduced from 2.5 minutes to 1.5 minutes. and every man for himself. The cooldown is changed from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and the shared cooldown from 30 seconds to 90 seconds.
Yeah, I felt... Is it only me that feels like the human nerf is a bit harsh?
Yeah, no, I think everyone was focused on Arcane Torrent because it's so iconic.
Yeah.
So the every man for himself was less. It kind of flew under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Arcane Torrent needed to be nerfed. Like, it's... It was way too strong. And also, not just in, like, maybe PvP or other kind of encounters. It was also very strong in Mythics, like in Mythic Plus.
Right. Like, I mean, obviously, if you have a lot of Blood Elves and they all have this extra interrupt...
Yeah, you can just line them up.
Powerful. Yep, exactly.
Because it's an interrupt. Like, it's not any kind of, like, DR. Like, you just keep interrupting. So I think that one was a bit strong for a racial. But I feel like the human racial was already nerfed in the past. It was very strong before when it used to act like a trinket, which meant that you didn't have to have a... well, we don't have actual trinkets anymore either, because now it's a PvP talent. But, so in the past, in case you don't remember, we used to actually have to equip a trinket that gives us the ability to break a CC effect on you. And as a human, you had the racial that broke any CC effect, meaning that you didn't need this trinket. That meant that you had an extra slot for a PvP trinket or any trinket that gives a damage buff or anything else for that matter. It essentially gave you an extra slot for gear. And that was strong. So once they nerfed that, they made it so it only removes, I think it's stuns and slows. No, not stuns. Yeah, stuns and slows. I believe. Stuns and snares. It became not as strong anymore.
I feel like maybe Blizzard is concerned about war mode and outdoor balancing, and they're trying to nerf it a bit further. So, you know, just thinking more about outdoor and world PvP, which they didn't have to think about as much. But there's no PvP testing actually really happening on the beta yet. So maybe stuff will change. I don't think Arcane Torrent will change, but maybe every man for himself will change. No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe. It feels a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But maybe not. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just biased. I don't know.
So this next part of the show, I don't know if we should put a spoiler tag up, but we got so many lore updates and story updates ranging from the start of Battle for Azeroth to scenarios when you do all the quests in the zone. A lot of broadcast text. So we should probably do a spoiler tag for this. And
I agree.
Yeah. If you don't like spoilers, you might want to, I don't know, get a drink or like stretch or something, because we'll probably be a little bit covering all of this.
Get yourself a snack, get some water, stretch your legs.
Yep.
And then you can come back in about, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe more even. It's actually a lot of information here.
Yeah, these are like tabloid
and some pictures.
Things. It's like, oh, like, you know, like, you are the father. Like, it's very tabloid in the broadcast text.
It is.
Yeah. So, we are starting off with an updated description of the pre-patch novel Before the Storm.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, what is Before the Storm, for those who may not know?
This is a book by Christy Golden, which covers the transition from Legion to Battle for Azeroth, exploring how the faction leaders react to Azurite, and taking us from everyone being triumphant that we defeated the Legion to trying to blow up each other's cities. So really showing how the faction conflict escalates again. And after the plot of that novel, the plot continues in the Collector's Edition novellas, which then take us up to the Burning of Teldrassil, and then we actually get to see the Burning of Teldrassil and Lordaeron in-game. So, the third version of this product description is, I can read some of it, I think it's also up on the screen. It is, Azeroth is dying. The Horde and the Alliance defeated the demonic Burning Legion, but a dire catastrophe is unfolding deep below the surface of the world. There is a mortal wound in the heart of Azeroth, struck by the sword of the fallen Titan Sargeras in a final act of cruelty. For Andrin Wynn, King of Stormwind, and Sylvanas Windrunner, war chief of the Horde and queen of the Forsaken, there is little time to rebuild what remains and even less to mourn what was lost. Azeroth's devastating wound has revealed a mysterious material known as Azurite. In the right hands, the strange golden substance is capable of incredible feats of creation. In the wrong ones, it could bring forth unthinkable destruction. As Alliance and Horde forces race to uncover the secrets of Azurite and heal the wounded world, Anduin enacts a desperate plea aimed at forging a lasting peace between the factions. Azurite jeopardizes the balance of power, and so Anduin must gain the trust of Sylvanas. But as ever, the Dark Lady has her own machinations.
Mm-hmm.
For peace to be possible, generations of bloodshed and hatred must be brought to an end. But there are truths that neither side is willing to accept, and ambitions they are loath to relinquish. As Alliance and Horde alike grasp for the Azurite's power, their simmering conflict threatens to reignite an all-out war, a war that would spell doom for Azeroth. So first of all, Anduin now wants peace. Like, I know they're like, oh, the Alliance and the Horde both have flaws, but to me it's like, I don't know. Anduin looks really good here, and Sylvanas looks really evil, just blowing stuff up and, like, plotting against Anduin. So I don't know. Like, I'm curious how they're going to try to balance this out, because right now the Alliance looks pretty level-headed here.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously there's a point of view which could be like, oh, but it's, Anduin is just, being the coward, and Sylvanas is, like, the strong one, the badass one, so that's what's happening. But still, like, I feel like there's a lot of information, just leaning towards Anduin being good, and Sylvanas wanting to do something different.
Yeah, and she's really controversial, as we'll keep covering. Like, we see her... It's heavily hinted that it looks like she is executing Night Elf civilians, and in a battle for Lordaeron cutscene, she is using Blight to kill all the troops and then raise skeletons. So she's really not appearing to be in a good light, and I know a lot of people were saying, oh, but, like, what if the Alliance provoked her to burn down Teldrassil? And it's like, well, now the Alliance actually wanted peace.
Yeah, that's what this piece of information says.
Right. I'm curious what the line is about. For peace to be possible, generations of bloodshed and hatred must be brought to an end. Because I wonder if there's, like, peace treaty negotiations and the Alliance tried to be disparaging to the Horde or didn't want to compromise, and that's why the Horde didn't accept their deal. But it makes me wonder, this is hinting that Azurite's going to keep continuing and horrible things will keep happening until we make amends. So I almost wonder if the end of the expansion will be, I don't know, different people in charge. Like, maybe Sourfang is more in charge, or, less faction war, because it seems like this is not sustainable. And, after a certain point, there's only so many places we can blow up and destroy.
Yeah, there's definitely so much chaos going on. And yeah, there's some more on Sourfang as well that we will go through a bit later.
Yeah, one theory which I've been thinking about is, will there be loosening of faction restrictions after this? Like, okay, we finally made this peace, and, as a result, players can group with people of the opposite faction, and then we don't have to worry about raid restrictions, and, maybe people like Sylvanas and Greymane will be in less positions of power because they keep escalating things, and, Anduin and Sourfang, as we'll cover, seem to be getting along or have honor as a value. So I don't know, it's just interesting, because this novel description makes it seem like we can't continue fighting each other forever, and we're not going to have Azurite power armor. This is like a Battle for Azeroth feature. Azurite armor is not going to be in patch 9.0. So maybe we'll be dealing with all this Azurite, realize we messed up, and then 9.0 will be like a old god void theme expansion again, because we know that, with Ashara and then a lot of these N'Zoth and other things that we've been hinting at, we know that the old gods are meddling, and Battle for Azeroth is not just a faction conflict, but as Ian said at the end of the press event, it's a battle to save Azeroth, so that has to play somewhere.
Save the world.
Yep.
Because we're witnessing so many different, like, wars between, like, on both continents, so maybe there's going to be even more after that.
Right. I mean, as Chronicle was saying, like, oh, the Alliance and Horde banded together and defeated the Lich King and Cthulhu and this and that, and all these things that were thought to be impossible, and the old gods want to stop them from doing this because working together they're this unstoppable force, and if we weaken them, that helps us.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, we're certainly weakening each other in battle for Azeroth, and this book makes it seem like it can continue, so it has to come to a head at some point. Plus, from a gameplay perspective, if the faction lines were blurred, you would have so much more content to do. Like, you could do content in more zones and have access to more cities and more quest lines and stuff like that.
But maybe the faction identity would be ruined then, though? Like, I feel like a lot of people are very proud to be Alliance or Horde.
Right, but I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just both sides are really making me cringe in battle for Azeroth. Like, maybe you could pick a faction, but you could group up with the other faction for things like PvP or raids, so you don't have to worry about, oh, no one's an Alliance raider because the racials are bad. You could,
What if they'll... Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, it's okay. I just realized what I said didn't totally make sense, because while you could group together, obviously, as an alliance, you would still have the, worst racials. It's not like you could suddenly get a horde racial. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, okay, I get it now. I was gonna say, what if they have one raid, which will make us, touch on the old gods, and maybe that raid will specifically be both alliance and horde, and maybe that's like towards the end of the expansion.
I think that could be cool.
I think that would be cool. Getting together, both sides, maybe like at the brink of realizing that Azeroth is not going to survive unless we work together.
Right, or something where it's like, oh, this person is evil and did this, and it's like, oh no, it's actually the old gods who are behind this, and oh no, or like, oh, we have all these, we're fighting this, we're using our Azurite to take down the other side, and like, oh no, we walked into the old god's lair, and he's like, nom nom nom, Azurite, I'm now stronger, and then we're like, oh no, we've been doing something horrible all along.
Because the Azurite was making them feel very, I don't know, like, vicious or something, like they seemed somehow manipulated or affected by it at least, so maybe there's something in that.
Yeah, it's like they said it, in the right hands, it's awesome, but in the wrong hands, it leads to great destruction. So maybe we'll be like, okay, let's just get rid of the Azurite, or like make a pact not to use the Azurite because we're all weakened now. The old gods are attacking us, so if we keep being addicted to the Azurite, we're not going to be able to defend ourselves and save Azeroth and ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because it seems like we have two stories going on at the same time. We've got the faction conflict, but then we also have this more like sinister, darker narrative where the faction is in the short term, but then there's this mysterious longer thing. And usually expansions, it's like the Legion is the big baddie, and then we fight like the lower tier people, then we fight the end guy. But this seems, it seems like there's different storylines going on, which may not all be wrapped up at the end of the expansion, which is also interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like there's so much that could happen.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Burning of Teldrassil. Some of the quests were available, not anymore because no one's level 120, obviously, on the beta with the character wipe. But when we did quest before the wipe, we did some of the quests, and basically, it covered the Alliance realizing that the Horde are attacking the Night Elves and not Silithus as planned, and then everyone scrambles to get them more resources and turn the Navy around. The most controversial part is this Light of Elune section, where it's by the location of the bodies. I think the town was taken by surprise. The guards were poisoned where they stood. Then they rounded up the civilians at the center of the city, and it is such a horrific thought. So that looks pretty bad to be murdering civilians, especially when the Night Elf stories are like, oh, like we don't want to torture people. And I think Garrosh got, his defining, like, redeeming character moment in Stone Talon was how he was upset when the general, bombed a city of civilians. He was upset with his Horde commander. So it's like, well, Sylvanas is going where Garrosh is not going.
Which is even more implication that there's something dark about Sylvanas.
Right. Or since we don't actually see them being murdered, if it's not Sylvanas, then there's like some dark force meddling to frame her to further drive the conflict between the Alliance.
Right, because we don't know for sure.
Yeah. It's also interesting to note that we meet Captain Dalaran, who is a character introduced in the novellas, which is interesting because, you know, if we think that a lot of Night Elves will be dying and maybe some major characters, we need, you know, fresh blood to keep people, you know, relating to all of the factions, to have characters they can, you know, follow heroes. So it's cool when the novel and the content ties in with each other well. And these quest line ends when we meet Malfurion, and he currently has a wall of wisps set up, which repels Sylvanas and the Horde. We later learn that Sylvanas is trying to come up with plans to break down the wall of wisps, and we later learn that Malfurion tries to kill Sourfang and is almost successful, but then Sylvanas just kind of shows up and starts shooting dark arrows at him. So they definitely meet again, and we don't know the fate of any of those characters after that collector's edition novella.
Would the continuation be, in that case, in the physical books themselves? Like, that's where you would have to read it?
I think so. They just gave us a teaser, and of course they ended the teaser on the cliffhanger.
Of course.
I think that the novel will cover it, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I've obviously not seen it.
Probably.
But I assume that the next chapter or page will be like, this happened to Malfurion.
Yeah.
Or Sourfang opened his eyes to find himself, like, you know, very wounded type thing.
Yeah. And at the end of all these questing, you get a mount reward, which is, this time, a hippogriff.
Yeah.
Not a hippo.
Yes. And I believe we got the flavor text for the mount now, which is something like, you know, this was one of the last hippogriffs carrying survivors out, and, you know, a collapse from exhaustion, you know, at the end. So it's like, oh, it's a very good bird. And again, makes the Alliance more sympathetic, because the Felbat is just like, oh, this was one of the last ones to escape the Undercity, while the Alliance one is like, this heroic bird, like, carried as many survivors as possible.
Yeah.
So interesting. If they want faction balance, they're not doing the best job making both sides sympathetic.
Has Blizzard commented on that recently?
No, I mean, well, they've said at the press event, I'm just curious because they said at the press event, I think in a Inven interview, I'm not sure, it was like a Asian fan site, they were saying that it was a flaw and an issue that the Horde looks evil, but they had to start with showing the Burning of Teldrassil to get interest at BlizzCon, and on the surface, it looks like the Horde is doing the wrong thing, but the story is more subtle than that. But everything we've seen since then keeps building upon that the Horde is being very aggressive and crossing a lot of lines. And just, you know, even subtle things like the way the mounts are. It's not like, oh, this Felbat saved the undead. It's like, oh, this Felbat was the last one. And the Alliance one has this extra layer of sadness as part of it.
That'll be really interesting if somehow we suddenly get information which is like, oh, that was really unexpected. Okay, yeah, now everything makes sense in terms of which side is more sympathetic. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, stuff like Anduin wanted peace is like, oh, well, this makes even better.
Yeah. And his meeting with Sourfang later on as well. Like, there's so many things about the Alliance and Anduin being very sympathetic and nice.
Exactly.
Good people. Yeah. Next up, we got some information or some text on Battle for Dalaran.
Yep. We were able to play through the Alliance and Horde scenarios. And we have videos and text. We don't want to go through all the major points. I think people obviously know what happens. You know, the Alliance wins. But we learned some interesting details from that. The first being that we learned that Sylvanas is using Blight to attempt to turn the tide in her favor. And she kills both Alliance and Horde troops. And then she raises them into skeletons, which is an act that makes Sourfang very upset and we get the lines where basically she's just like, honor means nothing to a corpse. You have the luxury of underestimating death, but it is something which I'm intimately familiar. Maybe you don't care if your people die so long as it is honorable, but to me this horde is worth saving. Anyone who disagrees does not deserve to stand among us, so die your warrior's death, High Overlord Sourfang. It means little to me. Perhaps I will raise your broken body to serve me once more. Or perhaps you will have a chance to say hello to your son. And Sourfang is just like, was this your plan all along? Is this how you meant to achieve victory, this honorless travesty? So he is not having any of Sylvanas' actions there.
And I'm playing a short little slideshow with the pictures. Here you can see as the skeletons are being raised, and here they're up, and you see half of them having an alliance shield and half of them having a horde shield. So she basically killed her own and the enemies, rose them. Can you say rose them? Raised them.
Yeah. Yeah.
To fight the battle. And yeah, Sourfang
Yeah.
was not very happy about that.
Right.
It feels like such, I don't know, feels so wrong.
Yeah, I feel that he saw Garrosh, and I feel now he's like, okay, like, this is another second thing. I can't deal with this. I'm just done. I need to take a stronger stand.
Mm-hmm.
So to turn the tide of battle, Jaina blasts a hole in the Lordaeron wall to turn the tide for the Alliance. So that's how that's how the Alliance then gains the upper hand. And there's some interesting dialogue where, Nathanos Blightcaller is like, oh, look, it's Alleria. And they're just sort of, it's like weird exchanging pleasantries, and also weird to see Alleria and Sylvanas, fighting on opposite sides as Windrunner sisters.
Mm-hmm.
We also learn that Anduin then captures Sourfang. And interesting dialogue there. Anduin is like, this war is not yours to bear alone, and I have no honor in killing you. And Anduin's like, my father gave everything for the Alliance. Are you willing to do the same for your people? And Sourfang's like, my life for the Horde. We'll get to what happens in the cutscene afterwards, but we fight him, we're victorious. Anduin decides to take him to Stormwind instead. And the strangest part of the cutscene is that we have data mined text, and it's Sylvanas is waiting in the throne room when Anduin arrives. Anduin offers her the chance to surrender. Instead, she blows up the entire city. I mean, what did you expect? So I don't know if this is a red herring, but it's like, whoa, like the Alliance couldn't even have their victory. It's like Sylvanas,
blew everything up.
Right. It's like she had the upper hand, and I'm sure a lot of Alliance soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
died in that action, and I don't know, maybe Jaina teleported them all away or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also like, well, how much did the Undercity mean to her if she obviously had to, rig the city in advance, as opposed, and maybe she liked it so much and it was her city and she couldn't bear the Alliance having it, that she was going to destroy it if she was going to lose it.
I mean, so she first basically kills her own soldiers, and then she destroys the building.
Yep, basically.
Kill everything. Down with it.
And because there's the Blight, no one can really use the zone for anything else, because it's just ruins and plague and...
Oh, that's a good point. Is that going to affect the zone afterwards?
I believe for max level players, the zone is affected, but for people still leveling, you can still do the quest there, and it looks the old way.
Okay.
Which makes sense, because, you're not the max level hero, so you haven't gotten to that point in the story yet.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean for Night Elves, Teldrassil will look as it is now?
If you are under 120.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I feel like there's more and more changes. Sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
I feel like there's more and more changes that are changes for you if you are in a certain progression in the game, which is really cool.
Yeah, it makes the world feel more dynamic.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, indeed.
We've also got some data mined cutscenes. These are still really early. We just showed some of the pictures with them, but these add some more context to the cutscenes. The first ones are basically Anduin defeating an Azurite war machine, so he's kind of badass. killing something huge and powerful. The second cutscene is he destroys the war machine, and Sylvanas is like, oh, well, bring on the blade. And Sourfang's like, there must be another way. And Sylvanas is like, stop. War demands that we take a more direct approach. And then the later cutscenes are Sylvanas casting more spells and creating more explosions of blight. We see her blowing up poison tanks with her bow, and Anduin and Jaina dodging that. And then the last cutscene is the most interesting, as it's when Sourfang is defeated and taken away by Anduin, and it's basically Sourfang is like, no, I demand an honorable death. And then Anduin says, my father once said that Varric Sourfang embodied what was best about the Horde, its sense of honor. He admired you for that, and so do I. Anduin, there is no honor in this. Sourfang, that is not for an Alliance king to decide. Anduin, at the moment it is. Anduin, take him to the stockades. Treat him with the respect he is due. When I return, we will speak of honor and how it may yet be reclaimed. And then Sourfang is taken off before they confront Sylvanas. And the honorable death is really interesting because when Malfurion was attacking Sourfang, Sourfang had made peace with that, like, oh, you know, Malfurion is, you know, such, like, an amazing,
so powerful
creature. You know, like, if I fail, like, I'm not dishonoring myself. I'll just make peace with my death. And, you know, in the concept art of the Burning of Teldrassil, we see Sourfang, you know, standing tall next to Sylvanas, so you always have to wonder if Sylvanas did some weird dark magic to, like, help heal Sourfang so quickly. And, you know, if so, he's, like, mad that he didn't get his honorable death from Malfurion, and, you know, he feels disgusted that Sylvanas thinks that she can just say whatever she wants because he's beholden to her. And he just, you know, maybe it's a sign of respect to Anduin, like, please just give me this honorable death. Like, you know, I just had it with Sylvanas. Like, he won't go back to Sylvanas, but he also is annoyed by Anduin's actions.
So his encounter with Malfurion is before this, in that case.
Right. It is before the Burning of Teldrassil, and it seems like Malfurion is doing this as, like, a latch-ditch effort to stop the Horde.
Yeah. Got it.
And he thought he was going to die, and... you know, an inn fell on him, so he was seriously wounded, but then we see him soon after standing upright, so he healed pretty quickly, or was denied his honorable death, and it seems like he's so disgusted with everything, he just doesn't want to, he just wants to die and not be, like, a political pawn.
Got it.
So, the next part of the story, continuing with Sourfang, is the Ord Intro Scenario, which is the Stormwind extraction, and we learn more about Sourfang. So, we've covered this before, and the plot is basically the same, but there are some dialogue changes. A lot of them are like dialects to be more in character with what people are saying, like Thalrissa or Zul. But there's one really important change when we meet up with Sourfang in his prison cell.
Ooh, yes. So to remind everyone, what happened before was that Sourfang was talking about meeting Anduin for some kind of meeting. Now that is not mentioned anymore.
Right. So basically, the end result is the same. Sourfang does not escape with them. But Sourfang says, you know, I will never return to the Horde. And it's like, whoa.
Like, whoa, indeed.
He doesn't want to escape. He'd rather sit in this Alliance prison cell. And he just says, you know, make sure you know the difference between loyalty and honor, and pray you never have to choose.
So the old one was kind of almost hinting towards him working with the Alliance, possibly on something. And now it's not so much working with the Alliance, but definitely being against the Horde. Well,
right.
Not the Horde itself, but Sylvanas being there.
Yeah, well, the old one even hints that maybe he would go see Anduin as a way to distract the Horde, because he also says, I will buy you as much time as I can to complete your mission.
Right.
The ones you're looking for are just down the hall. So it's like, oh, like, does he want to have a distraction so no one notices they're escaping? And it almost seems like he's, like, trying to be a heroic sacrifice, But now it's just like, no, I would rather be in this cell. Like, go away. And what's interesting is that it almost seems that the members of the Horde are so brainwashed. They're not like, oh, go on honor, or like, oh, you must come with us. They're just like, okay, like, bye. You know, they don't really have much emotion towards this.
Well, maybe it's because they're speaking to Starfang as well, so maybe they would feel in the wrong place to comment, maybe.
Right. It just seems interesting how, you know, like Rokon, who obviously knows him a while, is not like, oh, like, go and honor friend. It's just sort of like, okay, well, we've got like captives to, you know, reach by. So that's interesting, and that sort of makes me think, you know, with Andrew talking about redeeming honor and Sourfang saying he's chosen honor over loyalty, maybe there will be something in the future for Sourfang, especially if putting aside differences is a big theme of this Before the Storm and the solution to nullifying Azurite. We also, more of the story was playable, so we got the Horde escaping from the boat from Stormwind, and now we have a placeholder cinematic with Princess Talanji. This is what I saw at the press event at Blizzard, where the Alliance are catching up to the Horde ship, and Talanji summons Razan, who basically stomps on the fleet and then pushes the Horde fleet forward to the safety of Zuldazar, which shows her power, which kind of really impresses, you know, Nathanos. And then we have a few more quests which just like set up the political situation and how the Horde are unwelcome, and how Rastakhan is maybe listening to his corrupt advisors too much, and Magni Bronzebeard shows up to give us the heart of Azurite, Azeroth, as well. So those are the additions since the last time we previewed the Ord Intro Scenario.
Yep.
And now we have the Alliance Intro Scenario. There's so much lore in this. It's just
like, I'm just like looking through all of these, like making sure, like, okay, I've shown these ones, I've shown these ones. For some reason, Skype is a bit laggy today.
Oh no.
Yeah, I noticed it as well. Someone mentioned at the very beginning. I don't think it's that bad. It hasn't affected your voice, but it is a bit visible with the video feed compared to how it's been lately.
Should I turn it, I don't know, turn Skype on and off, or, I don't know, reset anything?
I think it should be... I think it should be okay, since the voice is what's most important. Especially since we're showing pictures and things like that. But, yeah, just thought I should mention it. Also, you know, if Brightpaw is using your internet, you know, do tell him to stop using it.
Yep. Brightpaw, where are you? Stop. Yeah, he's hiding. He must be doing something bad.
Yep. He needs to stop all these downloads. Or uploads. Maybe he's streaming on Twitch. Tell him to start streaming later.
I know, and it has like a little cat cam, so you can see us and the news, but then also a little cat wandering around.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. So, the Alliance Intro Scenario.
Yes.
The last time we previewed it, the whole part where Jaina actually... So, basically, we now know the Horde is with the Zandalar, and the Alliance is like, oh no, they've just gotten the Zandalar Navy to help them. We need a Navy as well. Like, Jaina, go and convince your faction, who you are now on bad terms with because, you know, you gave your father basically over to be murdered by the Horde. But see if you can, you know, make amends and get the Kulturas Navy. And there was lots of unfinished parts when we previewed it. Now we actually see Jaina getting a very cold reception as she walks through the streets of Kulturas. And leading up to that, we also have an unfinished cutscene where we see that Jaina has a lot of self-doubt and nightmares as she's traveling. We then see her walk through the city and being ridiculed by everyone. And that then, as it ends, there's still an unfinished cutscene where Jaina leaves her fate in Catherine's hands. Urged by Lady Ashvane to treat Jaina as a traitor, Catherine allows Jaina to be taken away to face justice. She's already dead to me. Which is so sad. The rest of the scenario was kind of the same, you know, just a lot of dialogue sounding, you know, different dialect for Talia and Flynn as you all escape. The interesting part is that you have a follow-up section where you learn that Talia has a father that she doesn't know about, just that he heroically died, in fighting the Lich King, which is foreshadowing. And then you meet her surrogate father, Cyrus, who, I think we're showing this on the screen right now. He explains how Catherine is very stubborn and we shouldn't give up on her, and that she is, really feeling the strain of the Third War, and that she's misguided, and that Kulturas really does need the Alliance to help them, so don't give up, trying to help the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And then Magni Bronzebeard also shows up as well, and they have, like, funny reactions. They're like, oh, a diamond dwarf. Well, this is really something new. And it's interesting how both the Alliance and Horde factions are just like, okay, who's this weird guy? Just get it over with. We have to go back to our, planning. Yep. Showing they're not really taking the conflict of, Azeroth being wounded seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So now we will skip way ahead to the Zandalar Forever scenario preview.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what you get when you complete all the Horde zones. So to recap, you need to do Nazmir to learn about Talanji fighting the Blood Trolls, the Throne of Zul'Dalar to thwart Zul's coup for the throne, which also involves King Rastakhan having an assassination attempt, and Zul murdering Razan and trying to raise the deceased kings of the Zandalari Empire for his rule. Then Secrets of the Sands, where we tried to stop General Jakrazet from freeing Mithrax, an imprisoned Khthraxi sealed away in a pyramid, and a Bargain of Blood, where Talanji then comes back through the Blood Trolls into Zuldazar to start the assault. Mm-hmm. So, in this scenario, we battle Zul's forces, which are basically, the Blood Trolls and the Mogul and, all his past allies. And we even get Bwansamdi to help Rastakhan and Talanji. And there's some really interesting dialogue because, he summons Bwansamdi, and it's like, oh, easy now, Your Majesty. Bwansamdi always helps his friends. Just don't you go forgetting your end of the bargain now. And I was like, well, what's the bargain? Is that, Rastakhan eventually needs to die and give his soul to Bwansamdi. But it's also interesting how he summons the dead, but they're already dead souls. He doesn't kill anyone to get his souls, while Sylvanas is murdering live troops to raise them.
Yep.
So he's a low of death, and he's like more ethical than Sylvanas here.
Which is funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, basically we're in a race with time because Gahun orders Zul to shatter this seal, which will then unleash, Gahun and his corruption onto the world. And Zul's at the top of this pyramid, so we're basically trying to fight through and liberate Zuldazar and stop Zul at the very top. Zul has also summoned Mithrax, the Khthraxi from Vol'jin, to help out. So at the end, Talanji is fighting off Mithrax, while Rastakhan confronts Zul and fights his way up through the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
The cutscene, of course, is unimplemented, but we can speculate on what has happened through the broadcast text. And, Zul is now the Zul Reborn encounter in Uldir, and we, previously showed the model for that. And there is data mine text saying, oh, Zul, how is he alive? I saw him die by my father's hand. Analysis indicates high levels of corruption. Gahun reanimated the specimen and enhanced it. So we know in the cutscene he dies.
Mm-hmm.
But it may be bittersweet. We don't know this for sure, but there is data mine text from Gahun saying, the seals are broken, the end is here, come and be the first to receive my gift. The seal's broken, the Titan's gone, the era of rot begins. So it may be a very mixed victory if we've killed Zul, but maybe he is still successful at destroying the final seal to, preserve Uldir. And then he gets resurrected anyway, so we didn't really, do too much.
Mm-hmm.
But, all this is in a cutscene, so, We don't exactly know what happens. Maybe the seal gets broken later on, but it's very likely that, you know, Zul dies at, like, maybe he frees the seal right as he dies or something like that. Or, you know, he dies and we think, like, yay, we've done it, and then Cahoon resurrects him, and then Zul and, you know, runs off. So there's a lot of speculation that King Rastakhan will not last through the end of the expansion because he, you know, with Bronsamdi saying that is end of the bargain, and, you know, that applies. So I can see that being true, especially if Razan is the Loa of Kings, and Razan helped nurse Rastakhan back to life after the assassination attempt. He helped bring back his energy, and now Razan is... If he stays dead and in the dungeon, Rastakhan has sort of lost one of his sources of power. And, you know, he's aging and weakening very quickly. So, you know, it makes you wonder if, you know, maybe he'll die and then Princess Talanji will, you know, take up her father's place and decide to... you know, join the Horde, and then that's when the Zandalari become an allied race.
Yeah.
So that's what I think will happen.
I guess we'll see. I mean, we have learned a lot about Talanji as well, so it would kind of make sense for her to also go up the ranks in that way. Because she's kind of feels important. No, I was just going to say, like, she feels pretty important already, so her going up the ranks and becoming the leader would almost come naturally, so I think it is definitely possible.
Yeah, there's also a parallel between the Alliance and Horde with a ruler and then a falling out with a child in reconciliation.
Oh yeah.
So on the Alliance side, you know, Catherine exiles Jaina, but then there's Data Mine broadcast text where you know, she's like, I ask you now to put your faith in my daughter Jaina, the true Lord Admiral of Kulturas. So it's like, oh, you know, now Catherine is following her daughter's decisions, and there's like some sort of transfer of power. While with the Horde, Rastakhan starts saying, oh, I wish I listened to Talanji more, and it would make sense if he's like, oh, I'm greatly weakened, like, you know, Talanji, you take over and make decisions, or, you know, he gives his blessing with the Horde with his dying breath or something like
so
that.
Even if he wouldn't die, he could be weakened somehow.
Right, and it's like, oh, you know, like, I'm very old now without the power of the Loa, and like Talanji, like, you know, you're very in tune with the Loa and spirits, like, you know, you should take over ruling now.
Yeah.
So we've got one more round of spoiler stuff. We're moving on to the broadcast text, which is related to stories that we haven't been able to preview in game, but we can kind of guess what's going on. This first one is very tabloid-esque. And it's like, oh, you are the father. So Talia, a major character who helps the Alliance in Kulturas expose Lady Ashvane, is the daughter of Bolvar Fordragon, who is now the Lich King.
And I like how it's like Fordragon, question mark, exclamation mark. Yeah, like Perk said, like the way that the characters are introduced are very like, whoa, what?
Yep. And everyone's like, oh, like, is Anduin and like Talia going to be this power couple?
Oh yeah.
We learn about this because Jaina introduces her to Anduin, and it's like, did you know my father, High Lord Bolvar, was a great man, a true hero of the Alliance, and to me. I remember now, he used to write you letters. He had a nickname for you, my shining star. And then it's like, well, remember back in Wrath of the Lich King? It was like, nobody will know that Bolvar is the Lich King. Like, it was at the end of the schematic, it's like, we can't tell people about this, it will be hidden.
Yeah.
And the text is like, the letters stop coming. I have so many questions. Talia, when you are ready, come to Stormwind. I will tell you all you wish to know about your father. So it's like, she doesn't know that he's the Lich King.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. And then it's like, well, is the Lich King going to join the Alliance now? To like dark energy is the Lich King. Like, he was... I remember when they said in Chronicle that Bolvar was keeping an eye on Sylvanas because she was like controlling the Valkyr, and now she's doing Lich King like things like raising the undead, so you never know if he's gonna be like, hey, like, I need to put an end to her, like, she's trying to usurp my power, and, you know, it would be very interesting if, like, The Lich King just sort of enters.
Indeed. That would be crazy.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yep. So...
I didn't realize that she didn't know. Oh wow, that's crazy.
Right. Like, nobody knows. It was meant to be, like, a secret. And just be like, course. Oh, Volvar just sort of died honorably in combat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, some stuff's gonna go down. It's gonna be exciting. The next thing is some more dialogue about Catherine. We've learned that... So, we know that there was... Eventually, Lady Ashvane's treachery was revealed to her, but now we've learned that when it was revealed, Catherine was on the verge of giving control of Kultiras to Lady Ashvane. So she was stepping down thinking she was a bad leader, and Lady Ashvane was like, oh, I'm so sorry, but yay me. And then Talia kind of rushes in and was like, oh, like, you know, I'm exposing you, like, you conspired with the pirates, you made the weapons that have destroyed the gate, you are using Azurite, you are working with the pirates. Then Catherine realizes she's been betrayed, and then Lady Ashvane, you know, blows things up and escapes the city. So I didn't realize it was that severe that she was about to give up control of the kingdom, which is like another parallel to the, you know, Zul tried to grab power by having this political conflict, and Lady Ashvane was trying to do the same thing, but with more subtle means of making it seem like it was Catherine's idea. Yep. So that's really cool. Just to rattle through some things quickly, we don't have images for these. Apparently, Ilaria is fighting Gallywix and is working with Chandris, so I guess she's still alive. People were thinking maybe Chandris died in the Burning of Teldrassil, so Ilaria is fighting Gallywix while Chandris Feathermoon is dealing with Blood Prince Drevin. We don't know at what point this happens. Let's see. Vol'jin is deemed worthy of having his ashes be in Atal Dazar, which is the resting place of the Zandalar kings. And Talanji expresses respect that Vol'jin did not buy into Zul's vision like her father was swayed, but Vol'jin said something was suspicious and, you know, decided not to follow that in Cataclysm. And we, this one is interesting. We have Garona explaining why she fights for the Horde, and it sounds kind of out of character for her. It almost sounds, I mean, like, you have to keep in mind that she was part of the Rogue Order Hall, and they pride themselves on disrupting authority, so you almost have to wonder if she is saying stuff to appeal to Nathanos' ego. And, you know, kind of, like, work on the inside to take stuff down. Like, he sounds really fanatical. It's like, when the last of his subjects has been slain and raised forsaken, the Boy King will kneel before the Dark Lady, and at long last there will be but one queen to rule them all. So, I feel like Garona is just sort of like, oh, yeah, I hate the Alliance, and, you know, like, I respect all this. And yeah, you know, like, I caused the downfall of one king. Perhaps it's time I ended the reign of another. Yeah, you hate Anma, and so do I. So, I don't know, it feels very different than how she, like, what we've seen of her in the past, how she had loyalty to the Alliance and only, you know, killed the king under mind control, and there was a lot of anguish. And then in Chronicle, we learned that, you know, Jaina was actually trying to help her at the Theramore you know, convention, like, try to gain control of her memories and mind again. And she works with both sides in, you know, her allegiances to the group of rogues in Legion. So this sounds very over the top for her. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, like pushing the idea very much of being against the Alliance, being angry with them. And, yeah, I don't know. It's flippant, like, oh yeah, like, I killed Lane, maybe I'll kill another. Yeah. It sounds really different than how, like, he was your good friend and, like, helped you, like, you know, gain your identity and whatnot. Yeah. And you hate him. So that's really interesting. We have also gotten some scenario dialogue where Jaina is stuck in the Blighted Lands. And I feel like this could maybe be the equivalent of that Zandalar Forever scenario for the Alliance, where we rescue Jaina from her self-doubt. She's really plagued by failures and keeps thinking that she should have done more. And she's really tormented by voices, and we help find her and, like, put her inner demons to rest, which I think is interesting and could help her character development and help the people that didn't realize all the horrible stuff that happened to her in the Miss of Pandaria books, which we never saw in game. This could maybe provide some context, like, oh, you know, Theramore was bombed, or, you know, in War Crimes she was nearly killed again, and just sort of, you know, showing all of the really crazy stuff she's had to deal with throughout World of Warcraft, and how it's, like, really messing with her head. We'll get to Lilian Voss in a second in the notes, but just to wrap up the first link, the Dark Iron Dwarves in their recruitment scenario, Anduin has them mining Azurite, and the goblins attack them and split the Black Anvil, and we need to drive the goblins away, as well as repair the Black Anvil. So, that is the first round, and then for the second round of broadcast text, not as much. We learned that Jaina has a brother, which is interesting because previously he was mentioned and then sort of retconned out by Chris Metzen, and he's now back in. And there is a joke reference to the red shirt guy who is really good at pointing out lore inconsistencies. And it is, that bloke in the red shirt over there told me I wasn't canon. Well, obviously, I'm a mariner, not a canon.
Yeah, I really like that too.
And
when Blizzard picks up these little references and just puts it in their game, it's perfect. I love it. The red shirt guy. Was he there last BlizzCon too?
Yeah, he goes every year.
Every year.
He's kind of like a fixture, and there actually is a red shirt guy dwarf, if you're not familiar, who is the Wildhammer fact checker, and he became famous by pointing out, you know, something that was inconsistent with the dwarves. And finally, we learn more about Lilian Voss. You first meet her in Cataclysm. She is a newly raised Forsaken after growing up a member of the Scarlet Crusade. She absolutely hates the Forsaken. She's repelled that she is one, and spends much of her character arc killing the Scarlet Crusade. She is also a member of the Uncrowned, which is, you know, again, makes you wonder what's going on, because she seems to have embraced the Forsaken culture now, and is trying to soothe a dying Tide Sage with the choice of undeath. So there is a Tide Sage who is dying, and he says that he would rather be turned into an undead than die, because now he can save he can, like, help protect his family and, like, send money to them, and keep them safe from the evil forces. And he talks about why he's afraid of becoming an undead, and all sorts of things. And she has a lot of interesting, like, thoughts on what it is to be Forsaken. Like, you know, terrible. Those that don't shun you will never treat you the same again. You look in a mirror and all you'll see is a monster, something that isn't you. But there is a bond in this curse, shared by all Forsaken. A bond that makes us family in this torment. A family that will never go away. So she's gone from, you know, hating the Forsaken and sort of, you know, being a lone wolf to talking about why it's a special thing, and her perspective is kind of different from, you know, Sylvanas' perspective on the Forsaken.
Yeah, it's not so much pride, but it's more like a feeling of having a bond together.
Right. She also seems empathetic, like this guy keeps saying he wants to be undead, and she's like, you know, are you sure? Like, your family will shun you, you can never see them. And when he's like, oh, it's never about seeing them, I want to support them, you know, she's like, oh, you know, your kids are lucky to have a father like you. And, you know, like, she doesn't sound, like, cartoonishly evil. She seems to still have some empathy.
Yeah.
About this. And actually pushes really hard for him to not just die, but to become a Forsaken, because everyone else is like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, you know, it's up to you. And she really sees it through, and then keeps comforting him when his family, surprised, does reject him. She's like, you know, like, you'll be a monster, but, like, you know, you're not a mindless servant of Sylvanas. You know, you still have your identity. So other people are like, well, either she's, you know, an inside agent like Arona, or she's being held up as an example of a different type of Forsaken that we can sympathize with more than Sylvanas, who is, like, very scorched earth.
Yeah, like a more relatable one.
Exactly. Like, the whole line about, like, oh, like, you don't have to serve Sylvanas, like, you know, you just have another, like, you're just sort of continuing and you're, like, alive in some way is interesting. Okay, I think we can finally take off the spoiler tag.
Yep. I think that would be everything for lore and broadcast text stories.
Yep.
That was a lot. How long was that? 5 minutes, right? Yeah, just 5 minutes.
Exactly. Okay, everyone can come back now. Right, Paul, come back.
Yeah, come back. Snacks, water, whatever else you went for. If you're like stretching your legs, you can sit down again, sit down and relax and watch the show. Or just listen to us. We've actually still got some visuals to show you guys. I think normally in the past, if we ever had lore, it would be like the last stuff, then like nothing to show you guys in terms of visuals. But we still have some stuff to show you guys.
Yeah. We have some armor sets. The first we have to show is the Cloth Uldir and Plate Uldir armor sets, as well as the Male Horde Warfronts. And I know everyone hated the Male Uldir set, but the cloth set especially has gotten kind of a better reaction. So that's cool. Although people are saying that the face mask will look pretty strange on Worgen and Tauren based on how other face masks do not look good on them. But I don't know, I kind of like the Mythic Nazmir set because it looks a lot less generic than the male set, which was like, oh, Trial of Valerie color, but this is like, it's cloth, but it's all like gold-plated cloth, and it looks like actual armor on top of like a fancy, flimsy cloth set.
Yeah, I was like, except for the fact that it actually is a robe, it almost looked like it could be plate. Like, there's so much armor on this.
Yeah, so I think that it conveys the fantasy of the Uldur raid a lot better than the plate set or the mouth set, which is just like, oh, look, it's like, you know, another metallic plate thing. They almost look subdued next to the Zandalari questing things. Like these, I would assume that they should be like way over the top of like gems everywhere and I don't know, feathers, and at least what the quest set has, but even more of that. But they look a little, I don't know, look kind of dull. Like, I'd also assume maybe they'd have some blood god corruption on it, but yeah, they don't, I don't know, they look kind of generic. But the cloth set I think is okay. I
just noticed the behind on the back of the Mythic cloth set looks like the back is kind of revealed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and it looks almost like, I don't know, chainmail at the back of the hood. So I don't know how practical that is to have the back revealed. It's like, we'll have like gold plating and chainmail. We'll just like have your shoulder blades revealed. It's cool.
You're like, yep, I'm just gonna, you know, show off my skin so you know where to pierce me. That's cool. Exactly. So this is the cloth mythic clothing or the gear, and this is the regular version. And again, we see the back. Not in this one though. A different color didn't have the back showing, so maybe it's just an oversight for now. And this one. And then we also got the older plate mythic set right here.
Right. Yep.
Which I think it looks less interesting than the cloth set. It's more of a sort of standard armor look.
I feel like maybe it's not even complete, because if you look at Zul's armor, it has the gems all over it, and it feels like the center should be a gem, and the little zigzags on the side need gems, and the helm needs
and on
gems.
The shoulder.
Yeah, so I think it's not complete yet.
Yeah, they do look like gem slots of some sort.
Yeah.
So that's very possible. And then we have the normal version right here.
Yeah, it doesn't look as elaborate, but obviously the missing gem in the center still is something that could be added.
So we also got some updates. It looks like we're going to have some new tint colors for the Mag'har Orc Heritage armor.
Yeah, this is very exciting because in 735, when we interviewed Blizzard, we asked about the data mine tints for some races and we asked if they were going to become a thing in game, and they said, oh, it wasn't intended, it just was artists having fun, but maybe we could find a way to do this in the future. And there are Frostwolf and Blackrock Mag'har Orc Heritage armor tints that now have their own cosmetic armor listings, which really strongly implies that you can collect these alternate tints.
So the one that's showing right now, the sort of bluish tint, is the Frostwolf one, and the one I showed previously, I'll go back to it. This one is the Blackrock one. Yeah.
So all of these, I think it was really cool, and hopefully more allied races can have additional tints available. Like I know people really want the purple Lightforged Renai set. or the kind of blood elf coloration of the Nightborn armor, which would make sense, you know, like, oh, we've joined the Horde and now we have like blood elf style things because we're close to the blood elves. So that would be interesting. So I'm just really happy this opens up the possibility for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And we've also gotten some new tabards. I think last show we highlighted things like the Dark Iron Dwarf and Magheart tabards, which actually fit the armor really well. Like, it makes sense why the logo is, you know, far down, because you've got this gigantic skull on your chest. So you can see the Horde logo plus the skull belt. But we've also had tabard models for Storm's Wake, the Alliance War effort, the Horde War effort, the Vulpera faction, which is the Voldunai, and Talandri's expedition, and the tabard kind of looks like her cool dress. And all these factions are, you know, you can grind rep with them in battle for Azeroth. Some of them are on your continent, some of them are neutral, like the Tortolan, and some of them are war factions that just have you attacking the enemy continent.
Yep.
So,
moving on from armor, we've got some updates on the different zones. Specifically, we got some updates on Bareilles. We got a bunch of pictures to show you guys.
Yep. Since we've been previewing Bareilles a lot, and it started off kind of underwhelming compared to the Horde City, and it keeps getting better each build. So since the last time we talked about this on the show, we have the banners related to the houses of Kultiras instead of placeholder Gilneas banners. We have a lot more NPCs and greenery. There's a really cute cupola cafe that overlooks the everything and looks very cozy. Proudmoore Academy now uses the correct high-resolution tabards, and there's a lot of new armor and weapons and hats. The den at Hook Point is filled with Kultiran partygoers wearing rhinestone sunglasses. On a darker note, the prisoners now have balls and chains on their legs. The docks are still empty, but there is a lot of like fish and like marketplace blood, fish blood, not like murdered people blood, but just like stuff you would find, like, you know, just sort of like, you know, fresh fish just killed. And Tradewind Market now looks like a real marketplace. There are profession trainers, market stalls, a dungeon entrance for the Siege of Bareilles, an herb garden, a waterfall, stables, and a forge. It still doesn't look completely done yet because there's weird things like the banker dude is just sort of sitting in the middle of nowhere, but it looks a lot better.
Looks more alive.
Yeah. I love the unique Kultiran armor, and there's this one NPC type that has a basket of flowers walking around, and it just feels, I don't know, it feels very homey and nice. It feels like Bareilles would be a nicer place to live than being stuck at the bottom of the pyramid in Zuldazar, even if, you know, for the 1% at the top, Zuldazar might be nicer. Yeah,
I think from a realistic point of view, Bareilles is a much better place. But in a sort of cool fantasy world, then I think Zandalar looks cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Like, Bareilles is getting better. Like, there are really cool sweeping vistas, and they keep adding more trees, so it feels very homey.
Like very cozy, natural.
Yeah, the skybox is pretty as well. So I think people are warming up to it, which is cool.
Definitely. But yeah, I didn't even show all the pictures. Like, there's tons more. If you guys want to, you can click the links in the... maybe we can have someone link it. There is a lot of pictures. We went through some of them, at least, to give you guys a little idea of the updates that have gone through now.
Yeah.
Something else, speaking of zones, are the maps. So we have maps added for 6 of the BFA zones. I'll go through them straight away.
Yep. So if you were in the alpha, previously you had this really weird pixelated texture version, and it was hard to navigate and figure out where you could go. And now we have the nice, like, drawn, artistic fantasy style maps for all of the new zones.
So this slideshow specifically is showing the zones in Kultiras. I think we've shown them all now, because there's 3 zones in it. And then these are the Zandalar ones. So that was 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Yay, we did it.
Hey.
And to give you a better perspective of where these zones actually are on the map, we also have the updated world map, which shows them where they will be on the bigger scale.
Yep. What is interesting, how the Maelstrom keeps getting kind of pushed over to the side. And we don't know if there's lore implications or it's simply, oh, you know, maps are a living, breathing thing. And, you know, maybe just like Earth, where people thought the world was flat and then they, you know, readjusted things and now continents are in different positions. Maybe the map makers keep learning more and keep readjusting things. So it's like a living, breathing world.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You know, if something is very far out, you just assume it's covering everything. And then it's like, oh, wait, there's actually an island here. Let's include this in our map now.
Yep. So it still says that when you log in and see the world map, it still has temp art work in progress on the bottom. So maybe more is still coming, but you know, all the continents are showing up that appear in Battle for Azeroth now. It
actually looks kind of. Sorry, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It looks kind of crazy actually that the islands are getting so close to the Maelstrom, especially like with how it looks on the map. It looks like a huge sort of like tornado, hurricane, tsunami or something, and it's gonna like eat up all the islands.
Maybe that will happen.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, based on like the sea being our enemy and horrible things happening. Our final zone update is more a tribute that was added to a familiar zone. In the Horde scenario, when you go to the Stormwind Stockades, there is a new prisoner who is Kazul, who is the 2017 BlizzCon cosplay contest winner for her portrayal of Hogger. So she is in the Stockades because she dressed up in her Hogger costume, and the guards thought it was so realistic that Hogger was attacking Stormwind, and they put her and the costume in the cage.
That's pretty funny. I like it. I
think that's a cute tribute, and it helps. You know, it helps highlight her costume. It's not just like an NPC. That's sort of random. I know they've honored past winners as well. Like I remember the Sprite Darter is also a Sprite Darter in I think Talador. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, you can see the picture here.
That's Sprite Darter. It was the Grand Empress. I don't know why I said Sprite Darter. Anyway, go ahead.
Don't worry. Yeah. You can see her sitting here in her cage, and she's saying, look, it's just a costume. See? Feel it. Yeah. Now, will you tell them to let me out of here? It was just a joke. Hogger wasn't really terrorizing Stormwind. And you can see the costume there. I'll put a little zoomed up picture. Whoops, that was not the zoomed up picture. There we go. So you can see the costume a bit more clearer. And the picture that I accidentally showed for a second, I'll show that now. This is an actual picture of the cosplay.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and she's done a number of interviews talking about how she made it because, you know, the Hogger moves differently than a person, so there has to be all sorts of interesting, you know, joints added and padding to get the right silhouette and the right animations, and yeah, she did an amazing job with that.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And a really sweet tribute. I like it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So the next thing we have are dungeon and raid updates, and the patch from 5 days ago added a fair amount of dungeon updates. We got 4 new dungeons for testing, which now I believe you can't test because some of them are max level, and we're no longer max level, but they are the Underrot, Shrine of the Storm, Waycrest Manor, and the Temple of Sethraliss, which leaves 2 remaining dungeons not open for testing, King's Rest and the Siege of Bareilles, and that makes sense because it seems to be the kind of the culmination of the Alliance and Horde stories, so maybe they're like fine-tuning that there's like secret lore. We got 3 new world bosses on the Alliance side, nothing too fancy, just that, yay, world bosses still exist. We learned that there is a mummy pet, the 1,000-year-old mummy wraps from the dungeon King's Rest. And as mentioned, we also learned that the schematic Mecha Mogul drops from the last boss, who is called Mogul Razdunk.
I actually think the mummy pet looks really cool.
Yeah, I'm seeing if it has any cool animations. Again, if you go to the Wowhead page and you click the view in the Wowhead model viewer, you can see all sorts of funny things the guy does. This build was also the one that we got the Zool Reborn abilities. So again, like the stage 1, the Forces of Blood, and then, stage 2, he gets empowered. Which makes sense because we also data mined that model, which we covered, days ago when the show first started.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been so many hours. But yeah, Zool got his abilities. And then in the past build, the build before that, which was while we're still on vacation, we had 2 interesting updates. We got another dungeon mount, the Underwrought Krog harness from the Underwrought, and a title was added for the G'huun achievement, which was the Fame Slayer of G'huun title, and you get that if you are one of the top 100 Alliance guilds or top 100 Horde guilds to kill Mythic G'huun, and we speculated that these incentives to be top 100 in a faction will encourage people to play both factions more equally, similar to PvP changes in Legion, so you don't have everyone playing Horde.
Yep. Yeah, I like that change. I think it's going to be good. Or it's not a change. It's more like, I like that added incentive, rather.
Yeah. So we also have some social changes. We'll be showing pictures for a community preview. Community was a feature announced at BlizzCon 2017, and it's a way of communication that is special outside of your guild. This will coexist with your guild. This will let you have multiple communities at once. They will include text channels, text channel history, role management, quick join, voice integration, calendar invites, and roster listings, and you can belong to multiple communities at once. And I think we've seen similar things in Diablo with clans and stuff. You can create a WoW community group or a Blizzard group. So, you can use this to communicate across games. And so far, the UI looks pretty similar to what we saw at BlizzCon 2017.
And here's the preview from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the communities. I think it's going to be a great addition to what we have already, because I think they're realizing as well that there is a lot of people who are playing with, even more people who may be on a different server, different faction, and similar, and being able to be part of multiple communities will make it easier to be connected to friends without needing to move to their server or similar. And I think that's great. And like in the preview example that we had here that they showed us at BlizzCon, it's like one, I think, wait, I can't actually see what it says. My preview window is kind of small. But I think one of them says something about Friday night raiding, and another one was something else. So you can, join communities for different purposes.
And even for different games, if it's through BattleNets, you could have these are the friends that I met in WoW, but we also play Overwatch together.
Yeah.
We also have a voice chat preview, which we briefly touched upon in communities. Communities can use voice chat. It's pretty simple. There are voice chat controls. You can configure devices and push to talk. Blizzard did something pretty clever, which is when you could finally test some of the scenarios. It's like, do you want to join voice chat at the start of this? Sort of being like, hey, hint, hint, do you want to join party voice chat so you can communicate with the party better? It seems pretty basic right now. Also, Discord has things like voice, but, you have to start somewhere. Not everyone has Discord. It's interesting that they have this functionality, even though I'm not sure it will be that popular.
Honestly, it may not be the best thing for guilds or serious people who are, having groups for progression, but I think, like you mentioned, maybe not everyone has Discord. So for that type of person who's just talking to someone for the very first time, I think it's great that the option is there.
Yeah.
Without having to have strings attached with, adding each other on Discord or similar.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's a few more pictures on how things will look like. You see the extra buttons there on the right picture, with a mute button and sound button. And then on the left side, you see the chat channels window, which has actually existed in the past as well, just a bit edited to make it fit for VoiceCom.
Yeah. So, I think we are finally done with the Battle for Azeroth news. And we have some things going on live servers as well as some upcoming events. And then we'll wrap it up with some, goings on with what the Wowhead staff have been up to in the last week. So there are Mythic and Taurus nerfs, specifically for Argus and Agrimar. The biggest, flashiest one is that Argus's health is reduced by 5% in Mythic difficulty, but Agrimar has a few as well, specifically in Mythic difficulty, where he now begins Stage 3 at 35% health, down from 40%. So, lots of people, expansion is coming to an end, and I guess they want a lot of people to, get over that hump and finally kill the last few bosses.
Yeah, I think this is something that we normally see in other expansions as well. It's, just to give a little bit of incentive or a little bit of a reward for people who've been struggling for a long time. And, they may have lost guild members on the way or similar. And this just makes it a tiny bit easier so that you can push through that little last bump. Yeah,
I was also going to say that I think Final Boss maybe asked about like when nerfs were coming at PAX East, and the developer said, we don't know yet, we're looking at data, we'll decide if that's needed, and here are the nerfs. I guess they looked at the data and decided that, hey, we need this after all, a week or two after that interview. So the other interesting news is that Blizzard Balance gifting is now available, aka BattleNet Balance. And now you can just put in a value and hit the gift balance button and select a friend, but you must be friends for 7 days before you can send it to them. And this is really good for giveaways, for sites and streamers, because if you're doing like a mountain pet giveaway, now you don't have to be like, well, do you have this pet already? Can we trade it in? You can just be like, here is the balance for $10. Go buy yourself a pet now.
That's very true. And I also like how, I'm not sure if it's a part of this, I'm not sure if this required a revamp, but I think the system has changed a little bit, because before, when I would gift mounts or pets to people in my stream, I would have to send the code to an email. And now there's actually a drop-down menu which allows me to choose a friend on my Battle.net list. And when I did it, which was like a week ago, my friend actually got it immediately,
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I was like, wait, you have it already? Because I had just finished the order, and then I got a whisper on Battle.net oh, wow, it looks so cool. And I was like, wait, what? You got it already? And he was like, yeah, it popped up in my, what's that thing? The gift section in the...
Yeah, the little dot, the little gift box
in the
on the launcher.
Yeah. So that's great. That means there's no more having to wait for up to 24 hours, or sometimes even it would take a day or two. So that's nice, having stuff happen immediately. So I guess the only downside, I think the only negative, or it's not really a negative, but the only thing that wouldn't work for giveaway is if you don't already have the person on your friends list, because then they would have to wait for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say that if you're like, how do we get Battle.net Balance? One way of doing the shuffle is that if you have a lot of gold, you get... You can get WoW tokens and then redeem them for $15 of Battle.net Balance. And then you can use the Battle.net Balance to get digital versions of Blizzard games, character services like realm transfers, as we mentioned, the mounts and pets and cosmetic helms, and things from other games like Hearthstone card packs and adventures. And yeah, just to touch on some upcoming in-game events, the Mythic Dungeon Invitational EU continues, I believe, on this Friday, right? I know they had some difficulties. I'm just making sure I didn't say the wrong thing. I know they had all those difficulties with European. So the Europe group stage broadcast is Saturday. 5 a.m. Pacific, and April 28th. And the Aussie one had some difficulties because Australia's internet was bad, worse than usual. So they have not said when they are rescheduling the games, but we know that it's, you know, it's too bad that that happened to Blizzard.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you know, it's like, oh, the whole country just fell apart.
Yeah.
But EU is coming up. Blizzard also launched a Twitch extension where you can hit an inspect button and see everyone's talents and gear at once, and it refreshes every second. And I know this because they decided to be awesome and use Wowhead tooltips, but we were sort of unaware of that, so it crashed the site with everyone using the tooltips at the same time and constantly having them refresh. But we've made changes. We can handle the extension and all of the Blizzard tooltip requests. So that's really cool to be, you know, helping provide information in some way for the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
We also, in-game, there is Volunteer Guard Day and Children's Week starting soon. And I know everyone loves doing the PvP achievement for this week. So, yeah, and Brightpaw is back because he knows we're wrapping up. Hello, Brightpaw.
It's like, so it's my turn to be in the spotlight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Can I pick you up, Brightpaw? Oh, no. He's like, no, I'm going to roll over and show you my belly. I will not be picked up.
Oh.
So we just wanted to wrap it up with some things that have been going on specifically with Wowhead, like new guides or features we have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
One cool thing we were talking about at the start of the show, Wowhead has launched our very own Twitch extension. What this does is on live servers, it will show your talents, gear, and transmog as an overlay with little buttons at the top of the screen. And a user can just click on the button and see your talent setup or your gear setup and mouse over everything to have more details, like what the name of the talent does, or, you know, if you have like the 980 version of your Arcana Crystal versus 985. And we're really happy with the initial response to it. And if you're not sure how to get the extension, if you just go to the extension page from your dashboard and you type in Wowhead in search, it should pop up. And it also works, it's an overlay, and it also works on mobile. So it's very versatile. Wow. Yeah.
I did not know that part. That's cool.
And we made it as an overlay instead of a panel because there are several cool panel extensions already. And we thought with an overlay, we can do, you know, cool things. And you don't have to scroll down to see more, and we can just focus on, like, the immediate updates people want, you know, like specifically just the talents and the stats that people are using. And it's been really cool. Like, a lot of people have been using it, you know, as they're running dungeons. They're like, hey, you can check out my current dungeon build. And then like, oh, look, I swapped alts, and the extension is updated as well to show my alt. So it's a really neat extension, and it's been one of the most positive, like, feature launches I've ever had on the site. And that was really heartwarming. Just seeing so many people happy that we made something for the Twitch community. So thank you so much, everyone, for using it.
No, I think it's awesome that you guys worked on it, and it's been working very fine. And I'm seeing it in a lot of WoW streams. Like, I'm seeing it in like PvP streams. I'm seeing it in PvE streams, because I think there's many situations where it's interesting to know what talent someone is using, because that can change from fight to fight, you know?
Right. And you have to be like, hey, like, you know, give me the command to show my talents again. Or like, oh man, turn off the UI so I can see your transmog. I'm just seeing your cloak. Now you can just be like, oh, gear button. Okay, this is what they're wearing.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. There are a few things we want to improve on it. We know the buttons load a little funny in theater mode. One of the WoW developers was in a serious car accident when he was about to fix that. So we're a little behind on the fix, but we are prioritizing that. So if you are seeing the extension and you have the screen in a weird dimension, the buttons still work and don't overlap with the top of, you know, Twitch's title. We've also made some Druid form guides. With the updated bear animations a few weeks ago, we realized it was hard on Wowhead for you to actually be like, let me see all the bear forms for a certain race, and like, let me see their animations. So we made a bunch of like resource pages for every race, and I know a lot of artists are really happy too, because now they have like a reference where they can just see everything at once and, you know, see like the run
that's really good, actually.
dance and everything. And, you know, they're just, like, even lesser known ones, like, oh, you know, every race has a different, like, incarnation model. Like, we should just put this somewhere. So we have all that now, and I think people really like that. We've continued with our state of class changes in Alpha, which we'll be continuing with because they've been really popular thanks to all the Discord communities that have been participating. Basically, we just invite a lot of people to share their thoughts on a certain topic they are experts at. So we recently had Death Knights, and the week before was Monk. I think we still have Hunters and Demon Hunters left before we hit up all the classes. And we'll probably do like PvP or raids or like circle back if a class has a lot of changes in the future. But we're really happy with the reaction to that. We also have returning player guides. We're doing one each week. They're targeted if you quit at a certain time and you want to see how the stuff you liked back then is around or changed. We are now up to Wrath of the Lich King. Yep. And we also have several guides for collectors and achievement hunters up. One is a guide by Vils covering Herald of the Titans. We know there's been a lot of changes over the years, and we're really happy that we have someone, you know, that's such a big force in the Achievements Discord, writing the full guide to be okay, like, this is what you need to do in 2018 to get Herald of the Titans.
Yep.
And Night Swifty from the Secret Finding Discord has made a compilation of all the secrets in Legion because, like, previously, if you knew the name of the secret, you could go to the Wowhead page, but if you're like, okay, well, like, what are the other hidden mounts? Like, I don't know the names, it's a secret.
Yeah.
Now you can just type in, like, Legion secrets into the Wowhead search. It's like, hey, do you want this guide highlighting all, you know, the toys and the mounts and the pets and everything else?
Yeah, that's actually really useful. Like you said, like if you've missed multiple of them, then it's great to have them all in the same list, so you don't have to search through things.
Yeah. And then finally, why don't you talk about this next one, Annie? Because
yeah, a little bit of an announcement, or like, I don't know what to call it, but yeah. So tomorrow, Thursday evening, at let's see if I get the time zones right. So midnight Central European time, which should be 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep, you got it.
I got it. Yes, time zones. I'm learning. I will be the guest on Allcraft. If you're not familiar with Allcraft, it's a podcast with Hodded, Asmongold, and Rich. And I'm going to be the guest for the night. So that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it's like a talk show format. So, like, you get to just, like, talk about all sorts of things and your WoW history and opinions on stuff. One reason we moved the show to Wednesday, we're like, oh god, the show's going to be super long, and like we don't have to worry about like Annie having to go off to do a different show if the show goes late. So I'm really excited to see you on it, and I'll be watching the VOD because also tomorrow I have this like product management training to help me like, you know, get more experience managing, you know, changing projects and you know, prioritization, stuff like that. So when I'm back from that, I will watch the VOD, and I'm sure it will be cool.
I hope so. I'm like a little bit like nervous, as always. I always get nervous when something is new, but I'm really excited as well. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah.
And I think we have a fair amount of questions because the show went on really long. Let's just run through some of them quickly.
I just saw someone in the chat say no one knows who Raegwyn is. He was a Death Knight, wasn't he? I think he was a Death Knight. He used to like solo a bunch of content.
I'm not sure if you...
I might be wrong.
Did we mispronounce the name? I'm not sure what this is in reference to. Was it...
I just saw the question like in the chat right now. Like someone called Raegwyn. I might be saying it wrong. I don't know. But yeah, you can continue with the questions.
Okay. Let's see. The Great Mew 83 says, have Blizzard mentioned any changes to the global cooldown, or would they be addressing this in the Q&A tomorrow? I don't know what they'll be addressing, but I know a lot of people are not happy with it, so I think it would make sense to address it, and I'm sure lots of people have submitted questions. If you have not, you can tweet Warcraft Eggs and hashtag it WarcraftQA, so your voice can be heard. Donday95 says, will there be a guild cross servers or not? I don't think anything is planned for guilds, really. Norfurian says, do you know if Blizzard will add some hair color for Mag'har Orcs? Because they don't have red hair like green Orcs. We don't know what Blizzard adds. They just sort of surprise us every week when the dressing room gets updates.
Yep.
I feel like they want them to have some differences, like even the classes they have are not the same, like the Mag'har can be priests and instead of warlocks, so maybe they want a few different like hair variations.
I wanted to comment on the question about guilds being cross-server.
Okay.
Because of the introduction of communities, you don't really need your guild itself to be cross-server because you can talk to people within the community instead. And so I think that should solve most of your needs with having a guild to be cross-server because you can be in the same community as friends on different servers. Yeah, I'm not sure if that is exactly what you're looking for, but I think you'll be happy with communities.
Yep. Skibad TV says, what is the chance that the old gods are not only manipulating Sylvanas, but also an alliance who is close to Anduin? I think with how everything is paralleling each other in Legion, that it may not take the exact same form, but there's probably going to be some sort of, if there is old god involvement, that the alliance will feel the repercussions from that in some way as well. Now, we don't know if Sylvanas is under the control. It's just a popular theory that, oh god, we don't want Garrosh 2.0, where someone's, like, maybe she's being framed in some way. Norfurian also asked, will we still be able to do old quests from Teldrassil? Yeah, you only max level has the stuff phased out, so as you're leveling, it's all the same.
What if you're max level and you want to do the old quests?
I don't know, maybe there'll be like a Chromie, like one of those time-walking NPCs.
I guess we don't know yet.
Yeah. And I think this is interesting. I don't have an answer, but it's interesting. Ages2566 says, oh, we have Grandpa Hellscream model that has been found during the data mining. As a side note, his hair has changed color. I guess he's stressed out, or it's interesting. Like, we've always thought
is it more gray?
Yeah. I've always been like, Warlords was just recently, but I guess in Draenor time, maybe a lot of time has, occurred from, maybe that's why his hair is gray. So he's saying, hey, Grommash has an updated model, so do you think he'll be getting the high-definition gore howl that was data mined in Warlords of Draenor beta? So I don't know, but I think that is really interesting, especially if his model has gotten an update. It makes sense he would use the weapon. And for some context, at one point he was meant to be the final boss of Warlords. He was not obviously the final boss, and there was, I think it was like a data mined legendary of Gorehowl, and it would probably make sense that if he was the final boss, you could loot his weapon, and that's all obviously changed, but, there's this nice Gorehowl that could be used for stuff in the future.
Yeah, like, just happens to be a nice-looking weapon over there that would fit him perfectly.
Yeah. Danger WW says, I was wondering how the class experts are selected for the State of the Class articles on Wowhead. I am not in charge of that, but if you message Squishy, one of the Wowhead staff on Discord, he can explain. We work pretty closely with the Discords, like the Ravenholt one, for example. They all worked together to explain what they thought about each spec. So it is a pretty community-driven effort. If you do think that someone else should be featured that we have not picked, we are always open for feedback, and you can message Squishy, and maybe we can take them into account for the next round of these articles. And that seems to be it, finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything wrapped up, like, suddenly...
Yeah.
Like, constant, so much to talk about, and suddenly, like, you know what? We're chilling now.
Exactly.
No, but there was a lot of cool stuff that happened. We were like close to possibly not being able to do a show this week either, and that was going to be crazy because then that would be 3 weeks. But we managed to find this time. For some of you guys, it might have been a bit confusing because that means we're appearing a day earlier than usual. But hopefully it's fine anyways.
Yeah. And then tomorrow would have also been crazy because if you didn't have All Craft, we have the Q&A, and like those tend to run a little late.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It would have been like from like Q&A news, like let's throw this into the article. So hopefully for next week we'll have the Q&A. Hopefully they won't say stuff that sort of obsoletes what we've said in this thing, like surprise, allied races are different. But I'm sure next week it will be interesting with the Q&A details to go over, and hopefully we'll have some more updates on different sites having beta keys, so you know, hopefully we'll have more details, but no promises. But it would be nice to have those details to share.
Mm-hmm. I also remember seeing a comment when talking about communities. Someone said something about, oh, great, like now I have to work on growing a community. Remember that you never have to create your own. You can always join communities, and in this way, you're not limited to just one, which is even better. Like this is a pure better way than the current guild system. Like it's better in every way because you can still create your own and work on growing your own, or you can join your friends and join someone else's and create your own at the same time. Like you can do everything at once. So it's really great in terms of not putting all the pressure on you to make your guild work, because meanwhile you can also join other people's, and you know, you can take some ideas here and there, be inspired and change yours to be fitting for you and for the people who are interested in your community and such. Just wanted to point that out. I do think the community system is going to be really good, and it's something that WoW has needed ever since Crossrealm was introduced.
Yeah, agreed. Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that's it. How's Brightpaw doing?
He's in the other room. I was gonna ask Sass if a winner was picked for the giveaway.
Ooh,
I haven't been messaged anything yet, so maybe that will be soon. But yeah, I think Brightpaw got tired. He's like, this show's really long. I'm
not getting my attention. Waiting on reply.
He came back at the end, and I don't know where he is now, but Brightpaw, come back!
Okay, it seems like we're waiting for a reply from a winner. Personal opinion for Wowhead, would you prefer older content scaling with the stat squish to allow for more to do gear options? Do you think this would be healthy?
You can go first.
Wait, did I understand the question right? Like, saying that we could use old content for like current gear as well? Is that the idea of it? That you can use old content as current content too? If that's the question, is that how you understood it, Perk?
Yeah, I sort of taking it to me like more raids as time walking, which could be interesting. But I feel like if you had everything open all the time, it would get kind of messy, and maybe some stuff doesn't scale properly.
I think, yeah. Because we have time walking, but it's like stuck to a certain time that you can do it. You can't do it all the time. And I think I like that restriction because I don't want to have like a need to do old content because they give decent gear.
I must grind this out for the trinket from Black.
This trinket, yeah.
If it's Titan Forges, it's the best trinket for me. And then it's like, how do you handle stuff like, oh well, like these shoulders now, if they're 120, they must have Azurite sockets in them, and that's like a huge amount of extra work. And I think also
like the idea of content being old, so it should be easy to go back and farm it. So yeah, I don't know. I think having more options for the time walking weeks is cool and interesting. I'm not sure if I want it to be like a permanent part of things, like what if like I realize one day I'm missing this cloak transmog in this quest out in like Duskwood, and then suddenly the NPCs are actually hitting me hard. Like it'd feel like this is supposed to be old content, like in the same way how like I think there was a lot of where was this change? I don't remember where it was exactly. Was it Suramar where they made the change where the NPCs actually started scaling with your item level?
Oh yeah, I think that was like an unannounced small change. It's like, oh, like stuff is hitting harder as I'm doing this world quest. Like this is strange. Like please tone this down. I remember that.
Yeah, and like a lot of people are complaining because like, hey, like I want to get better gear to feel stronger. I don't want better gear and then the NPCs are gearing with me so they don't feel easier. What's the point of gearing? So yeah, I think it's nice to keep old content old, but it can be nice as the special time walking thingies to have more dungeons and more raids and similar.
Yeah. The winner is also Pirates Ken DIAF.
Okay, so, and he responded yes?
Sass did not say. I think he did.
Oh yeah, I think he did, because I just saw him
Congrats.
was doing a world quest. Well, congratulations.
Yay.
The prize was WoW Game Time, was it?
Yep, 1 month of WoW game time. And congrats on that. We also wrapped up a Wowhead Discord giveaway for a year of game time. If you're unfamiliar, we do periodically do giveaways in Wowhead's Discord, usually on the weekends. And you also we have a Wowhead Discord webhook where if you subscribe to that, the server that you attach it to will let you know whenever Wowhead posts the latest news. And it's really cool. I think we're up to like 6,000 Discord servers. So we like to get the news out to you guys. And a lot of the topics in Wowhead Weekly you can read first by the webhook alerting you.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be it from us tonight.
Yeah.
Unless there were any other questions?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay.
So yeah, if you do have any questions, let us know on YouTube or on the post comments, and we'll try to address them for next time.
And just a reminder, in case you don't know, our shows are on Thursdays, except this week, special circumstance, on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific?
1 p.m. Pacific.
1 p.m. Pacific. 1 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Central European Time. And yeah, we'll see you again, in that case, in a week from now. A week and a day.
Yep, a week and a day.
A week and a day. I want to thank everyone for subscribing to the channel. I saw a bunch of you guys. I wasn't able to thank everyone. I did thank the people at the beginning. Everyone else, thank you. We really appreciate it. All the subscriptions really support us. And not just subscriptions, people following the stream, people, you know, engaging in the chat, people asking questions. All that engagement is great. Starts discussions, and that's always what's interesting and makes the shows more engaging, more interesting for you guys as well. And also, I want to give a special thank you to people who use Wowhead Premium, or who are subscribed to Wowhead Premium. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a subscription on the Wowhead page, which removes all the ads and gives you some extra perks as well, such as having your own color in the forums on the website. Yep, there we got a command for it.
Yep. Yay.
But yeah, we will see you guys again next week. Is Annie streaming tonight? It's very late for EU. I'm probably not streaming tonight, but I do stream every other day of the week, except Sundays. Sundays. But yeah, take care, everyone, and we will see you again next week.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.